Hi everyone, welcome to the March 2024 forecast. I hope that you are all doing well. I hope you had an amazing February and that you had a lot of new opportunities and doors open for you, maybe some fun collaborating with some people. I do know that it was a difficult month for a lot of people too, because I think in the channeled message I received in February or in January, but for February and really for this year, with all of the energy coming in and the waves of purging, a lot of people have really been experiencing some intense cleansing on an energetic level. So there really has been a spike in the shadow rising for people. So March actually feels like a month that is very much connected to some really, really deep healing. And actually the energies of March are asking us to dive even deeper than we have gone before. So it feels like there's a strong connection to divine family. I keep getting this feeling about, divine child, divine mother, divine father. So what it feels like to me is a lot of healing in this triangle, right? Which we have this inner triangle within us of connection to our inner child as well as the inner mother father, which is like the inner masculine and the inner feminine. So a lot of times these energies connect with, all of the time until we become more conscious and aware, they connect to the energy of our parents. So whatever we experienced in childhood, and our relationship to the mother figure and then our relationship to the father figure has really determined this internal triangle that we have going on with our own inner child, inner mother, and inner father. So there has been for a lot of you, I know, because I know a lot of my clients watch this, and many of you have done inner child work. You've experienced the healing that comes along with working these dynamics, and it feels like this month is asking us to go even deeper into this and really creating a sacred union, and a sacred union between the masculine and the feminine, but also their relation to the inner child. So this is a month really for deep healing. It also feels like the veil this month is very thin. And so there's also going to be a lot of, we'll say, guidance and support from the spirit world. So many of you may have already noticed that you're feeling more sensitive. Maybe you're actually communicating more with spirit beings, and sensing more ghostly activity, because that might be a theme this month actually, is that the spirit world feels very restless. So it feels like a lot of our ancestors, people who have lived before us, whether they are actual relatives or people of the land that we live on currently. So there's going to be a heightening in that activity. There's going to be a heightening in energetics and forces that we can't physically see with our eyes, unless, of course, you have that ability. But it feels very much like a very highly active and charged month for spiritual activity. So don't be surprised if you notice this happening either in your homes, places of business, really anywhere that you go, if you feel a more heightened sense of awareness of ghosts or spirits. And there's a difference between a ghost, I guess, and a spirit, in the sense of, like, a ghost is kind of in the in-between. Sometimes there are souls that get trapped in connection to a place or a person, because they have unresolved issues and they're not fully able to move through the veil. Sometimes they get like stuck in this loop, in this cycle, in this pattern. And actually I experienced this last night at a friend's house where there was a female ghost in one of the rooms that was kind of stuck in this energetic loop, and she needed help. She needed help getting out of it so that she could then cross the veil and move on and find her peace. So there is a lot of restless energy this month in the spirit world. Really, a lot of our ancestors are wanting to get really important messages through to us. So, so we have several themes this month actually. This is a very active month in a lot of ways. So we have this, this need for inner child healing the mother-father wounds. So really needing to ask yourself, what is still there for me in regards to either a father figure or a mother figure that I need to heal from in this, inner child dynamic. So being aware of that and letting yourself go deeper where that's concerned. And then there's also this heightening of sensitivity. So people who already have gifts will be experiencing even more sensitivity. People who, everybody has gifts to an extent. So everybody's going to be experiencing a bit more of a heightened, sensitivity. But especially those of us who are already tuned in to a lot of these energies. So it's like a transitional month too. It really feels like this month is the in-between for us. So like how I was saying for, ghosts, spirits, when they transition, there's this little period of time that you're like in this in-between before you move through the veil. This month feels like an in-between for everyone, for all of us. Because we're moving into some really intense energies when we hit the month of April. We have an eclipse, I believe, on April 8th. That is very, very significant to what's happening here on Earth right now. So because of that, March is this in-between of like, it's about choices, right? It's about needing to go deeper. It's about getting more clear in your values, your value system, like what is really important to me in my life, and am I making choices in alignment with those values, with that value system, right? So for an example, if I really value spending time with my family, right, but I work a 48-hour week or whatever it is, and I just don't have enough time to spend with them that I would really like to, that's one example of a living out of alignment with a value system. It's like we've got to get more proactive about our priorities and what truly is important. We need to actually have some foresight and look ahead, because the other theme is about the future. So long-term future for the earth is very positive. Short-term future is very difficult in many ways for all of us. We're heading to, in order to make the changes that we need to make to create a better future for our children, for ourselves and our children, we have to really face some difficult and dark things. So the shadow has to come up and out. It needs to be purged, right? Just like we've been feeling the purge, the waves within us. That has to happen in order for us to get to the positive outcome, right? But the future is also not set in stone. And so every single choice that we make, we actually change the future, right? So the future is based on the present, and the choices that we're making right here and right now. So it's so important that in this in-between that we're going to be experiencing in March, we are getting very, very clear within us of the direction that we need to go and that we want to go to create the future that we want to live and that we want our children to experience. You know, we as humans, we tend to get very self-absorbed. I mean, we live in a narcissistic society, truly. And so, you know, which is also part of the reason why we're here at this turning point in humanity. So the antidote for narcissism, right, is moving outside of our fear, because fear is a very contractual energy. And love is an opening energy. So when in our fear, we tend to shut down, we tend to close off, we lose attunement to the people around us. Attunement is so critical for the future of where we're heading. We need to attune to one another. We need to create healthy connection. We have, you know, going back to the whole inner dynamic of the mother, father, child, a lot of us have learned dysfunctional ways of relating to each other. And because we are in an emotional dark age, this is true for everyone. So in order to heal this, we need to actually become more attuned to ourselves and then to others as well. Now, what that means is that we need to listen to our internal guidance system, which is emotional. So emotional energy is something that we as humans, we learn through. That's how we process. It's how we integrate, and it's how we create what we call enlightenment. So most people don't understand the true power of emotion, right? Because of this emotional dark age. Now, emotion is our internal guidance system. So when we talk about living more in alignment with our value system, that means that we need to start listening to our emotions. Now, the actual emotion may not be the truth or the value, so to speak, but the information underneath the emotion. So when we drop in, we let ourselves feel through the emotion, then we always come up with the truth underneath about ourselves. So, for instance, if I'm experiencing anxiety for whatever reason, if I actually sit down and I drop into my anxiety and I feel through it, then I am going to get to this place eventually where I realize why I'm anxious in the first place. And maybe it's because I need to set a boundary. Maybe I don't feel safe and I need to say, oh, you know what, this doesn't work for me. So this is my boundary. So emotion is so important in that sense of moving us into alignment with our higher self. Like, our higher self is constantly sending us information, and it's communicating to us through our feeling state, our emotions. Yes, and mental energy too. But really it's your emotion that tells you whether or not you're in alignment or you're out of alignment. So even with your thoughts, right? Because thoughts can create emotion. If my thoughts are in alignment, then I will feel better. If my thoughts are out of alignment, I will feel worse, right? So, but you cannot bypass emotion, right? You cannot think your way out of a negative emotion. You must feel it. You must drop in and move through in order to get to the other side. So if my negative emotion tells me I'm out of alignment, the only way to get into alignment is by moving through that emotion. Now, we will constantly feel negative emotion because it's part of the growing process, right? So say my heart is like, I really want to know what love feels like, right? So if I want to know what love feels like, then my higher self goes, oh, I am love. Okay, it immediately will line up with the desire that we as a human gave birth to based on the contrasting experience. So if I am experiencing what it's like to not feel loved, then that's what helps me give rise to the desire for love. So my higher self goes, oh, love, okay, that's what I want. So it immediately lines up with love. But me as a human, because I'm not so sure what that looks like or what that feels like. And, maybe I have created shame around so many things that I don't feel like I deserve love or whatever it is, then that's creating a resistance to lining up with my higher self. And in that resistance point, then I suffer. So suffering comes more from our resistance to feeling our pain, because in order for me to line up with the experience of love, I need to let myself feel the grief of not being loved in the first place. Maybe there's anger there that I am experiencing because I didn't get the love I needed. So I need to actually let myself move through and process that emotion in order to then line up with the ability to experience love. So in that constant growth process, we're constantly, because the higher self doesn't stay still, it continuously moves based on the desires we give rise to. So it's constantly moving and growing and evolving just as we do. But in order for us to continuously catch up and keep up, we need to be processing our emotions. Emotion has a cycle. So when we start to feel it, right, if we don't feel it to completion, it doesn't fully release from our bodies. So emotion starts to move through, and if it gets stuck, which is how a lot of trauma is created, especially in childhood, because in childhood, we're primarily emotional from the ages of 0 to 8. So, what that means is that that's pretty much the foundation for trauma. It's also the foundation for our emotional function or dysfunction. So, our ability to process emotion is learned during that time frame. So, what happens if we start to feel an emotion and then it gets stuck? It becomes stress without resolve, and stress without resolve is trauma. So, we know the feeling of when we release an emotion. So if I feel it all the way through, I know I've released that because I feel a sense of relief. That's when I just lined up with my higher self yet again, right? Now, it can be a process of minutes, that more emotion comes up, or at least maybe I'm not fully lined up, but I'm getting closer, right? So that relief tells you that's where I'm heading. I'm heading to that alignment. And joy is a state of being, whereas happiness is an emotion. So happiness is an emotion just like anger, fear, sadness, it's an emotion that comes and goes. Joy is a state of being that says, I am not in resistance. So I have released resistance and I am allowing the flow of emotion. So meaning I can actually experience joy even when I'm in grief. And honestly, grief is one of those emotions that can actually bring you so close to spirit. It's in the metal element, and the metal element is inspiration, it is spirit. So we can gain so much inspiration when we allow ourselves to really fully grieve, right? Grief is also one of the heaviest and densest emotions that we can experience when it's not processed. So in the processing, in the allowing of, we can actually you can feel connected to yourself. You can feel connected to your soul and your spirit, which is that sense of joy, even when you are feeling a negative emotion. So we're not meant to be happy all the time. We're not meant to be sad all the time. We're meant to be in fluctuation. We're constantly changing, constantly moving. This really connects to actually my the channeled message that I got in January, and I posted it in the February forecast. So for those of you who haven't watched the February forecast, if you want to hear the channeled message, that's the video to go back and listen to, or you can read the channeled message on my website, which is healingwithangela.com, and it would be under a blog post. But this channeled message I received from the Ascended Masters. The Ascended Masters tend to be many of whom which I communicate and receive messages from. And in that channeled message, you know, they kept showing me the chrysalis of the caterpillar to a butterfly. So that whole process of transmutation and how imaginal cells appear and all of that. Well, this process that I'm talking about of processing our emotion is actually part of what this is a transmutation process, right? So for those of you who are empaths, you'll really enjoy this next part, because I'm going to talk about how, you know, empaths have the ability actually to create and hold a very high frequency for others. You can actually ground the negative energy of people around you. So you can do this though if you are in alignment with your own emotions, and that you are not in resistance to them, but that you are in a flow state and an understanding of your emotions and feeling and being present with them. When we do that, it opens our heart space, right? And remember when I said that, like, opening is the energy we're looking for. Opening is the energy of love, because it's a receptive energy, and it creates the symbiosis, the connection between one person and another. But fear is what closes that down. So if I am feeling my emotion, if I'm processing my emotion, I am more in a state of openness and receptivity and attunement to myself and those around me. Now, when I try to resist, because this is what a lot of empaths will do, they'll try to resist feeling other people's emotions, right? Because, oh my gosh, it's so much, it's so intense, it's so, you know, trust me, I totally relate to this. And we can feel so sensitive, and just walking through a grocery store sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like a bombardment of energy and emotion. But when I'm in this place of like, oh, I don't want to deal with that right now, so I kind of shut down, then I actually create more resistance within myself. I create more fear within myself. But if I walk through and I open my heart space, right, and I'm expanding it and leaning into it, it actually is a less painful process. And not only that, I'm transmuting it as I go, and so it doesn't feel like it gets stuck to me. You know, I'm gonna talk about Jesus here for a second, because this is something that I have learned about Jesus. And, you know, I was raised very, very religious, and I no longer subscribe to much of that. And I do know that, you know, every religion has their own ideas about Jesus and everything, who he was, and, you know, lots of stories. But anyway, my perception that I have learned is that Jesus was like, he was an empath, right? But he was an empath who mastered the art of emotion, transmutation. And so he could walk into a space of, you know, people who are sick, who are ill. So like with leprosy, for instance, and he walks into this space, and he's learned to master like holding this frequency and keeping this frequency very high from his heart space. And so he's actually able to then transmute right through that heart space, the denser energies, and making them turning them into a higher frequency. Now, he's not going to allow his vibration to drop. So he's going to hold that high, which means that anybody comes into contact with him, they have to then, their vibration has to raise in order to match his and to be in a similar frequency. It might not go as high, but it has to be in the realm, right? So that's how he, like these miracle stories of how he healed people, that's really what this is, right? It's the transmutation of energy from the denser to the higher. And so when we talk about this butterfly process, it's alchemy. So it's turning base metals into gold, essentially. So all empaths have this ability, right? If we learn how to really master our emotions and being in flow and having just a really good relationship with them, no resistance, then we can hold a very high vibration. It is really what we need right now on this earth. So in this in-between, right, which is the month of March, This is an in-between. This is about going deeper into ourselves and really getting clear about our values by listening to our emotions, because our emotions are always telling us, they're always giving us a message, right? So listen and go deeper. And this is the time that we've got to get clear, because, you know, we're all heading for some big event. Event and events, potentially, right? So there have to be things, there have to be things happening in the world in order to change the structures and the systems and the way that we have been going about things, because it is not working. It's very dysfunctional, and we are not creating healthy human beings from the structures that we live in this matrix. So in order to change that, now we're already pretty much lined up with some, you know, intense events that are meant to kind of break down the structures that exist so that we can have a fresh start, so to speak. Now, if we do this process, right, every single choice we make starting now, and I'm very serious about starting right here and right now, get very clear in the month of March, because every single choice you make has a ripple effect into the whole of our consciousness, and we can actually lessen, you know, the pain and the suffering that may potentially come from some of these events, from some of the destruction. So we're heading toward the changes no matter what, but we may be able to soften them to an extent based on the choices we're making. So if we are transmuting these denser energies within ourselves, we're transmuting them for the whole of everyone. It's one person can and does make a difference. And so that is what we have to recognize in moving out of a narcissistic, fearful, fear-based energy and moving more into a space of love and holding that frequency. We have to hold that frequency. So if any of you are interested in learning how to process these and doing this shadow work and healing and bringing your shadow into the light of your consciousness, you know, integration and enlightenment and transmutation, then you are welcome to book a session with me. But it is very important that we do this, no matter how, I don't care how you do it, just do it. Because this is an energy of, this is the, well, we've been through so many turning points, so it's not the turning point, but it is the in-between, right, where we get clear before we then move into April, which is a pretty big month for this year. So March is really, it's about getting clear about your purpose, your highest path and your highest purpose. And, you know, for me, that's really what has gotten me through some of the hardest and darkest times of my life, is really coming back into that alignment with my heart space. And, you know, what am I here for? Why did I choose to be here during this time? Which, by the way, all of us did. We all chose to be here during this time. So what are we going to do about it, right? It's like we came here knowing what we were coming into, even though we forgot, you know, amnesia. But we're a lot of us have already woken up to it again. So it's, how committed are you going to be to really, you know, making this the experience you came here to make it? So get clear about your purpose, your highest path, your highest purpose. That is what that's what we have to get so deeply committed to in the month of March, so that we are prepared for the rest of the year. So if we choose to do these things, if we choose to really dive deep in the month of March and get very clear about our purpose, our values, what's really, really important to us, and you know, using our foresight a bit to look into the future of the ripple effect of the choices that we make, because literally every choice we make has a ripple effect into everything. So when we commit to our values, then some really deep and miraculous healing can actually take place in this month of March. And we need to hold a high vibration as much as we possibly can. We need to do our best to be in a state of love. And that does not mean to bypass your fear, by no means, because every time we contract, we can actually expand even more. So it's like when we start to contract, it's like, okay, I'm going to process this. I need to work through what is my fear. And if there is an origin to that fear, whatever it is, right? But once we move through that, actually then our expansion, our opening into love can be much greater. So that is everything that I have for you. If you would like to work with me, if you'd like to book a session, you can go to my website. My website is healingwithangela.com. And there I have information about what it is I do, what I offer. And feel free to, you can also contact me through my website if you have questions or anything like that. So I hope that everybody has a really good month of March, and I'll see you in April. Take care. Welcome to the energy forecast for March 2024. I am very much looking forward to being here, like I am here already, so... Oh my word! Forgot to show you the animal! The monthly animal is the swan. Isn't she a beauty? The swan is about the deep dive, right? So, swans also represent transformation and psychic ability. So, there you have it.